All right, guys. I want to talk a little bit about drainage patterns in connection with what we just talked about yesterday, landscapes. So, drainage patterns are essentially how the water runs off the landscape. And as you go around the world, if you look at satellite imagery around the world, you'll see that water runs off the landscape differently in different places. So, this one here is called a dendritic pattern. This is called a radial pattern, a rectangular pattern, a trellis pattern. So, these are all different ways that the landscape um, will allow the water to go down in different ways. So I'm going to go back to my notes that I had yesterday. So I just want to show you each one of these individually. Then we're going to look at some satellite imagery after that. So a dendritic pattern, this one right here. Dendritic actually comes from a word tree. And as you look at this pattern, you'll notice that the pattern resembles a tree with all these branches kind of branching off of the main river, or what we might say the trunk of the tree. So dendritic is very tree-like, and this is probably the most common one across the globe. And if you look at the landscape that it's found on, notice nice flat horizontal layers of sedimentary bedrock, as well as some sloping land. So this is probably on the plateaus of the landscapes around the world, as well as on the plains. Okay, so this is called a dendritic. Again, most common. This one is called an annular. Annular, you can see these concentric rings going around. And what happened here, this is igneous intrusion. Actually, it's an extrusion. It came to the surface. So this is like a big dome of rock of a volcano. And all the layers above it got folded and bent out of the way. So the water is going around that volcano in this circular pattern. This is less common. You don't find this everywhere. This is called a rectangular, often called a trellis pattern. So a trellis pattern, you see there's a valley here in this little cutout. So this is a mountainous region. As you can see, there's a nice fault line here, and there's a valley. And so you have the main trunk of the river going through that valley, and I'll show you guys that on Google Earth later. This one is called radial. Radial patterns are where you have volcanic mountains with nothing around them, and so you just have a really steep peak in the middle, and the water goes off in like these lines going down away from the center. So if you think this is the center of the mountain, the peak of the mountain is here, and the water runs off in every direction away from that. It's called radial because it's like the radius of a circle. Okay, so those are all drainage patterns. Now, let me just go to Google Earth really quickly. Google Earth is great for looking for different drainage patterns. I'm actually, just to show you where I am, you can probably figure out where I am. There's New York State, there's Lake Ontario, there's the Finger Lakes. We're here in Syracuse, in this area. And if you look just a bit to the southeast of us, you can kind of see it, and I'll try to highlight this best I can. This area right here, this is a drainage pattern. This is a valley, and you can see all these branches of that river going away from that. And those branches would tell you that that is a dendritic pattern. So this is a plateau. This is the Allegheny Plateau, actually. And all this water is running off to the south and branching off into these little tiny rivers. If you zoom in on it, each one of these looks like, it's a smaller version of its bigger cousin as it branches down further. So that's dendritic. Let me go to a radial pattern. So I'm going across the globe. I'm going to go to one that I've been to before. So this is Mount Rainier. Okay, so Mount Rainier is a volcanic mountain. And this is, if you look at it closely, this is the glaciers on top of it. Okay, and you can see all these rivers coming off of it in every direction. So radiating out like the radius of a circle away from the center. So that's a radial pattern. Okay, and now one more. We're going to go down to South America. So going down here, these are the Andes Mountains, as you can see along the west coast. And I'm going to go to the foothills of those mountains right around here. So this is some folded bedrock. And you can see, if you look closely, there's some mountain ranges here. One right here. Let me get my highlighting mouse. So this is a mountain range and another mountain range. And notice how they're all parallel with each other running north and south here. Now in between them, you'll notice there is a river that goes like this and like that. and like that. So they're all parallel with each other as well. So the water is running in these valleys in between the mountains here. And this is what we would call a trellis pattern. So nice parallel lines in the valley. So mountain here, valley here, mountain, valley. And the water runs up the valley and comes down in a trellis-like pattern. So the water runs down into the valley, and here's the main trunk of the river. Okay, so that gives you kind of an idea of a trellis pattern. Now, just to go back to some of the notes, just go through some questions really quickly. Here's one that's actually dealing with stream drainage. Okay, so look, it says streams radiate outward from the center. That should give you an idea of this is a radial pattern. Remember, going away from the center. And if you remember the example I just showed, it was Mount Rainier, which is a volcanic mountain. The mountain's in the middle. All the streams run away from the center. Okay, now here's a little bit of a tricky one. It says, which topographic map best shows the contour lines for this stream drainage pattern? Notice nice long river here and little streams that come off of it that are what we call a trellis pattern. Okay, so parallel big rivers with little rivers running into them. So we're looking for two valleys because we have two main rivers. And if you look at this topographic map here, the lowest elevation is right in there and right in there. So two valleys, one there, and that would make sense for this drainage pattern. That's a little bit of a tricky one. Okay. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to show you. You guys are going to do some questions just to practice before tomorrow, because tomorrow you guys have a quiz on both glaciers as well as landscapes and drainage patterns. And that's it. Okay. If you have any questions, just let me know.